Tonight, we invite you to embark on a peaceful journey with the sleepy squirrel. This enchanting story will gently guide you into a restful slumber. As you close your eyes, immerse yourself in the world of Sammy, a spirited squirrel, and his adventures in a serene forest. Discover the valuable lessons he learns, the wisdom he gains, and the beauty of rest. Breathe deeply, let go of the day's worries, and allow the soothing narrative to cradle you into a tranquil night's sleep. Join us as we begin our journey into the sleepy squirrel. Chapter 1. A bustling autumn. Sammy, a youthful and energetic squirrel, lived in the middle of a busy forest where the leaves were turning a golden color and the air had a crisp sense of winter. The jungle knew Sammy for his endless enthusiasm and need for knowledge. Wild animals started preparing for the harsh winter months as the days of fall became shorter. While the bears stormed fat, the birds migrated south, and the trees lost their leaves. The energetic Sammy spent his days discovering the forest's hidden treasures. Sammy scampered through the woodland, his eyes gleaming with delight. One crisp morning, as the sun shed the golden glow over the dew-laden grass, chasing the swinging leaves, he jumped from branch to limb, his heart racing with the delight of movement. Sammy saw each day as an opportunity for exploration. Each tree is a hurdle to overcome, and each new find is a priceless gem. He took a moment to relax on a very high limb, looked out over the forest below. Every inch of his forest house was visible from where he stood. He was both amazed and eager to learn more about what he saw. Someone from below yelled out, "Sammy!" The ancient sage oak tree, known as Mr. Oliver, has been a fixture in the woodland for generations. "Have you been gathering food for the winter?" Sammy glanced down at his almost depleted food supply, briefly losing track of his exploits. "Oh, I've been absolutely occupied with exploring. I really haven't had the chance to do that," he shrugged in response. A few yellow leaves fluttered to the floor when Mr. Oliver shook his branches. "Winter's coming, Sammy. Here's time to prepare. In manner, even a most energetic squirrel needs to rest." Nodding, Sammy nodded, but ideas of his next excursion were already running through his head. The words of wisdom from the ancient tree had no heat to hand him rather and went away with boundless enthusiasm. Over the course of the day, Sammy's exploits led him farther and farther away from his treehouse. The wind carried him as he ran through the falling leaves, and he mustered the courage to go close to the forest's edge, where wild creatures lived. Sammy felt a wave of fatigue wash over him for the first time as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a pinking orange hue over the sky. After a whole day of running about and playing, he realized he hadn't given any consideration to the upcoming winter. Returning to his tree at a slower pace than normal, he couldn't shake the memory of what Mr. Oliver had said. Even the most energetic squirrel needs to rest. The thrill of the day's event faded into a restful slumber as he nestled in his nest. Sammy finally started to get it. He needed to rest and play at different times. Sammy awoke from his sound sleep as the morning sunbeams threw into the thick woodland canopy. He was burdened by the awareness of his carelessness the day before. As he extended his limbs, he inhaled deeply of the cool fall air. He made up his mind that today would be an exception. He would start getting ready for winter today. A fresh feeling of purpose energized Sammy as he began his day. As he scampered down his tree, he kept a careful watch out for nuts and seeds on the forest floor. What his mother had told him about winter-proof food sources came flooding back to him. You should throw away acorns, hickory nuts, and bean nuts. While Sammy was gathering, he saw the creatures hard at work, getting ready for winter. As the birds swooped down on the last of the berries, the chipmunks stuffed their cheeks with seeds, and the rabbits dug deeper into their burrows. It dawned on Sammy that he was joined by others in their mad dash for time. There was a flurry of movement throughout the forest, as all the creatures there were keenly aware of the approaching cold. But Sammy was mistaken. Collecting food was no picnic. He had to go further than normal from his tree and meet things he seldom saw. The landfordable and secure woodland suddenly showed its more dangerous side. Being wary of predators and staying close to home were two of Sammy's most important survival skills. Sammy worked tirelessly all day long. To gather as much food as he could carry, he climbed trees, dug holes in the ground, and even bravely delved into the undergrowth. His food supply had increased significantly by late afternoon, but his weariness had also increased. Sammy thought back on his day's work as he rested beneath a maple tree, his heart pounding from exertion. Not only did he feel accomplished, but he also understood how serious the issue was. A season of repose, winter was also a time of survival. With all its majesty and mystery, the forest might also be a trap for the careless. Looking up at the sky, Sammy saw that the light was beginning to go out sooner than it had in summer. He realized he needed to be more methodical in getting ready. Once he had ensured his existence through the winter, only then could he go on an adventure and play. Sammy went back to his tree with a renewed feeling of maturity and duty after having this epiphany. The days ahead would demand even more effort, but he was prepared. In response to changing environmental conditions and human needs, the nimble, carefree squirrel was changing and adapting. The next day, as the sun rose over a sky striped with hints of purple and orange, Sammy got back to work getting ready for winter. A feeling of accomplishment washed over him as his food supply continued to rise. A soft voice nevertheless begged him to stop what he was doing. The sage, old oak tree, Mr. Oliver, was there. For a low, rumbling voice, Mr. Oliver said, "Sammy, come here. I have something important to share with you." With a sense of curiosity, Sammy hurried to the tree's base. In the woods, Mr. Oliver had always served as a wellspring of knowledge. His youth had seen the passing of many years worth of seasons, and his branches had provided refuge to innumerable generations of animals. "Sammy," he said, "you've been working hard, and that is good. But remember, The key to surviving winter is not just in gathering food, also in understanding the rhythms of nature. As Mr. Ivor described the forest's ebb and flow of life with the changing seasons, Sammy paid close attention. Rest and energy conservation, he said, are of the utmost significance, particularly in the brutal winter months. Trees lose their leaves so they can save energy, Mr. Oliver said. Bears hibernate to survive the food scarcity. Every creature in the forest adapts to the winter in its way, and you, young squirrel, must learn to do the same. Realization widened Sammy's eyes. He had always thought of winter as a season of hard work. He had always neglected the bigger issue of survival in favor of a more urgent chore of acquiring food. According to Mr. Oliver, nature has a delicate balance, Sammy. While it's important to be prepared, it's equally important to listen to your body and give it the rest it needs. But winter is a time of stillness and conservation. As Sammy sat under the ancient oak tree, engrossed in his discourse, the woodland around him seems to have a new significance. A rabbit's soft digging, and river's mild flow, and a leaf gently falling from a branch were all things that caught his attention. He would join the rest of nature in getting ready for a nap. Sammy expressed her deepest gratitude to Mr. Oliver for his wise words. He came to understand that the teachings he was receiving extended beyond just survival and included the art of coexisting well with his natural surroundings. His thoughts were consumed with an anticipation of the approaching winter as he made his way back up to his tree. Armed with knowledge of the natural cycles of life and a plenty of food, he felt prepared. Sammy had a fresh perspective on his mission to obtain food after listening to Mr. Oliver's suggestions. Now he knew that it was more important to focus on how efficiently and sustainably he gathered find on the sheer amount. Sammy had a level head all day long. In order to stay strong during the winter, he took it easy when he became weary and sought out the healthiest nuts and seeds. In his quest for sustenance, he delved into previously uncharted parts of the forest. The nuts on the hazelnut trees were ripe and ready for harvest when Sammy came across them. In awe of Mother Nature's bounty, he stuffed his cheeks. In addition, he found a patch of wild berries, which he added to his winter food supply since he knew that would be delicious. Sammy watched as various woodland animals went about their tasks, each with their own distinct style. Even the ants were busy, bringing little bits of food back to their nests, while chipmunks were busy stockpiling food in their tunnels and birds were picking at the meadow's final remaining seeds. Sammy felt at home in the forest because of this group effort, this tacit agreement among all the residents. To him, it was clear that every living thing had a part to play in maintaining a forest balance. They were all interdependent and essential threads in the life's fabric. Sammy had amassed a considerable quantity of food by the time the sun started to set, throwing lengthy shadows over the woodland floor. He now had enough supply of seeds, nuts, and berries to get him through the winter. Satisfaction swept over him as he perched on a limb and looked down on his day's labor. He had figured out how to control his enthusiasm and work more efficiently. just like the food he had collected. This lesson was vital to his life. The woodland was becoming more serene as the day's activity dwindled into night. Sammy felt a profound menace with the natural environment and its ebb and flow as he took in the tranquil beauty of his house. Sammy wakes up the next morning to find the world changed. Delicate white crowns graced the trees, and a gentle layer of snow blanketed the woodland floor. Quietly and exquisitely, the season's first snowfall had fallen throughout the night. Satisfaction swept over him as he perched on a limb and looked down on his day's labor. He had figured out how to control his enthusiasm and work more efficiently. Just like the food he had collected, this lesson was vital to his life. The woodland was becoming more serene as the day's activity dwindled into night. Sammy felt a profound menace with the natural environment and its ebb and flow as he took in the tranquil beauty of his house. Sammy wakes up the next morning to find the world changed. Delicate white crowns graced the trees, and a gentle layer of snow blanketed the woodland floor. Quietly and exquisitely, the season's first snowfall had fallen throughout the night. With wide eyes, Sammy looked out of his nest. The usual scenery has become a mystical winter wonderland due to the accumulation of snow. With this novel sensation came a mix of emotions, a rush of exhilarations, and a twinge of fear. With the first snowfall came the arrival of winter's colder, snowier days when food would be in short supply, and the harvest from the previous fall would be crucial to ensuring one's survival. He stepped out gingerly, his little feet making imprints in the powdery snow. All around him, the snow had silenced the forest's customary noises. As a means of energy conservation, Sammy saw that the woodland animals were traveling at a slower pace. Sammy found that getting food had become a more difficult challenge as he continued to explore. Under the snow, he could no longer see the nuts and seeds that he had so easily collected before. He could only find them by using his recollection and his acute sense of smell. The snow also made getting around more difficult. Careful navigation was required of Sammy as he avoided large snowdrifts and slick branches. He understood the need of conserving the energy he had previously taken for granted during the warmer months. Sammy nevertheless managed to enjoy his new surroundings, despite all the difficulties. As he careened down a low slope, he felt the icy snow brush across his whiskers. He was awestruck by the delicate snowflakes, designs, and the peaceful beauty of the woodland blanketed in snow. The truth, however, became clearer as the day wore on. His vitality was spent faster than he had expected from the exertion of traversing the snow, and the chill began to penetrate his bones. With a fatigued body and a heart overflowing with wonder after his first snowfall, Sammy made an unusually early return to his nest. With thanks for the safe haven and the food supply he had painstakingly amassed, he cuddled up in his cozy nest. Sammy pondered the impending winter as he slipped into slumber. During this period, people would relax and focus on conservation efforts, taking stock of the natural environment, its wonders and difficulties. Sammy was prepared to confront this new chapter with bravery and insight. As the first snowfall signaled its start, The woodland fell into a profound silence in the days after the first snowfall. A calmer cadence of life replaced the euphoria of the first snowfall. Sammy started to sense a shift inside himself. He had always been a whirlwind of activity. His customary zeal for the morning was beginning to fade. He realized he found it more difficult to brave the chilly mornings outside his nest. He was experiencing a profound lethargy in his bones, and his gait was slower than usual. Sammy fought against this emotion at first. As he explored the cold area and gathered food, he attempted to keep up his normal pace. It was already challenging, but it was becoming worse every day. He was finding himself having to relax more often, and the previously joyful hobbies now seemed like overwhelming chores. Sammy went to see Mr. Oliver because she was worried and confused. A knowledgeable sentinel stood vigil in the snow-chalico forest. An ancient oak tree, now stripped of its leaves. Sammy spoke up about his worries, that something was wrong with him and how exhausted he was. After listening attentively, Mr. Oliver talked with his soothing, deep voice. What you're experiencing, Sammy, is natural. Winter is not just a season of physical challenge, but also of rest. Your body's telling you that it's time to slow down, to conserve your energy for the days when food will be even scarcer. Sammy was taken aback that the changing of the seasons may calm his fiery personality was something he had never thought about before. He had never slowed down for contemplation or repose. He had always been going. The forest takes a break during winter, Mr. Oliver went on to say. The trees steep, the flowers retreat into their bulbs, and many animals hibernate. Well, you don't hibernate like a bear. You too need to slow down and conserve your energy. For Sammy, this realization marked a turning point. He learned the hard way that he needed to tune into his internal clock and honor the innate cycles of nature. Getting enough sleep was essential, not a need to have. Sammy started to change his regular schedule. He stayed inside more and went out for shorter bursts of food gathering more seldom. The tranquility of the winter woodland was beautiful to him as he sat in his tree and watched the world go by. Sammy gained fresh insight on life during this moment of relaxation. He grew to value the alum, the grace of the snowflakes, and the tranquility of the woods. Now he knew that working hard and taking it easy were two sides of the same coin. Sam felt a abandoned indebtedness wash over him as he relished this slower pace. As he trudged through the cold days, the unexpected weariness that had previously alarmed him now seemed like a natural, reassuring hug. The days became shorter and the nights got longer as winter progressed. The previously bustling jungle now rested in a peaceful, otherworldly sleep. This slower pace of life had become second nature to Sammy as well. The reflective quiet had replaced the first thrill of snow and the ensuing weariness. As the sun set every night, casting a kaleidoscope of orange, then purple across the sky, Sammy would sit on a limb close to his nest and think deep thoughts. For him, the twilight hours had become a holy period of contemplation. His travels since the fall occupied his thoughts, recalling his youthful enthusiasm, carefree spirit, and first resistance to winter preparations. He recalled his limitless vitality. After listening to Mr. Oliver's words of wisdom, he thought back on what he had learned about the natural world cycles. All of a sudden, Sammy saw how much he had matured. The squirrel had transformed from an immature, carefree juvenile into an intelligent, sophisticated adult. He had realized the significance of being well prepared, the worth of working hard, and the need of taking breaks. A profound sense of oneness with the universe washed over Sammy as he watched the stars start to glimmer in the night sky. Embedded in the complex web of forest life, he realized he was a part of a greater cycle. The ever-changing seasons, with all their difficulties and opportunities, were an integral part of who he was. The future was on Sammy's mind as well. What the next winter meant hell, and how he would keep adapting remained a mystery to him. The impending arrival of spring filled him with anticipation of the revitalizing energy that would bring. His mind wandered to the next fall, when he would restock on winter preparations armed with the wisdom and insight he had received. Samuel felt at ease and fulfilled after these sunset meditations. He was prepared for whatsoever the future brought, sure of his resilience and flexibility in the face of adversity. He was able to channel both his youthful and the maturity and calmness that came with age. Sammy sought refuge in his snug nest as the first evening stars appeared overhead. Feeling the warm embrace of his home, he cuddled up. Amidst the stillness, he could hear the life of the forest all about him. The trees' low breaths, a rustle of snoring creatures, and the delicate patter of snowflakes on the ground. In this very instant, Sammy was filled with immense appreciation for the path he had traveled and the wisdom he had gained. After years of seeing sleep as a necessary evil, he finally gave in and drifted off into a restful slumber. Chapter 2. The First Dream of Hibernation. The days grew shorter, when the nights became colder as winter seized the woodland. Sammy started to notice a difference in his sleep habits when he was snug in his nest. His dreams were more real and vivid, and he slept for longer periods of time. It was a strange state of sleep for him, something in between being completely alert and completely asleep. Sammy chose to learn more about hibernation because he was intrigued by this transformation. It was common for the old owl, who had a legendary knowledge of the forest and all its inhabitants, to muse on the secrets of nature. As he recalled, the owl lived in a hollow in a tall, old tree, and Sammy went there one cold winter night. With his serene expression and sharp eyes, the owl paid close attention as Sammy detailed his more restful visions. The owl started out by saying, "Hibernation is a fascinating aspect of nature." His voice was deep in measure. A lot of animals go into this deep sleep when the winter rolls around. Because of this, they are able to save energy and a food shortage. As the owl described the many methods in which animals hibernate, Sammy listened intently. Bears, for instance, fell into a profound slumber when their core temperatures plummeted and their heart rates diminished. Bats and hedgehogs, which are smaller animals, hibernated as well, but in a different way. They all went on to say, "You squirrels don't hibernate like bears or hedgehogs. Nevertheless, a milder kind of hibernation does occur. As a defense mechanism against the cold, your body begins to sleep deeper. Sammy found this realization to be illuminating. The shifts he was feeling were quite normal, and he knew they were essential to his survival in the winter. In his wisdom, the owl imparted the value of attuning oneself to the rhythms of sleep and waking. He urged Sammy to give in to the transformation, to let his mind and body relax. As he slept deeply, Sammy felt admiration at the wisdom of nature as he left the Cole's house. His dreams, he realized now, were a kind of this later hibernation, a means by which his mind and body could relax and recharge. Sammy had a deeper respect for the mystique of hibernation that night as he cuddled up in his nest, knowing that sleep was an essential component of his being in sync with the forest cycle. He shut his eyes and welcomed the deep, dreamy slumber. Sammy became increasingly regular in his visits to the wise old owl in the middle of the winter forest, where the moon shone a glittering light over the trees covered in snow. Sammy looked up to the owl, who was magnificently perched on a limb, for advice and counsel as he went through his first semi-hibernation. Sammy showed up one night with a lot of uncertainties and concerns in his head. Even though he was familiar in hibernation, the thought of sleeping for so long was still foreign to him. The extended stretches of stillness were too much for his restless disposition. Well, why, Sammy started quite timidly. Winter is a time for relaxation, and I get that. Yet I still get nervous. Getting out and about and doing stuff is nothing new for me. I am feeling out of place here after all this downtime. A look of comprehension and sympathy crossed the Andrew's face as he listened carefully. Sammy, he said gently, you're not alone in experiencing these emotions. People tend to be resistant to change, particularly when it challenges their fundamental identity. Just like the forest itself, the people who live there must adapt to the changing seasons. Sammy showed up one night with a lot of uncertainties and concerns in his head. Even though he was familiar in hibernation, the thought of sleeping for so long was still foreign to him. The extended stretches of stillness were too much for his restless disposition. Well, why, Sammy started quite timidly. Winter is a time for relaxation, and I get that. Yet I still get nervous. Getting out and about and doing stuff is nothing new for me. I am feeling out of place here after all this downtime. A look of comprehension and sympathy crossed the Andrew's face as he listened carefully. Sammy, he said gently, you're not alone in experiencing these emotions. People tend to be resistant to change, particularly when it challenges their fundamental identity. Just like the forest itself, the people who live there must adapt to the changing seasons. His next words were, despite mental resistance, your body is always in the know about what it needs. A winter slumber is a period for both physical and mental renewal. You learn from your experiences, progress, and process them in your dreams, even while you're not doing anything physically. The owl's remarks lingered in Sammy's mind. He reflected on his recent dreams. Wonderful, detailed fantasies where he learned new things, soared like a bird, and relived his exploits. He came to understand that his dreams were more than simply visuals. They were his mind's method of discovery and education. "Sammy, welcome this period," the owl said. "Embark on experiences guided by your desires. After this long winter, you'll feel refreshed and ready to take on the new year when spring arrives." Sammy felt better after thanking the owl. The time he spent resting was not the end of his life. Rather, it was the beginning of a new trip, one that would prove to be as formative as his physical adventures. As Sammy made himself at home in his nest that night, he surrendered to his fears and welcomed the tranquility and the possibility of new dreams. A mischievous grin spread over his face as he stepped off, eager for the fantastic experiences that were ahead in his dreams. Sammy persisted in battling his new demons as winter descended in quiet and snow blanketed the wilderness. He often found himself battling uncertainties and restlessness, even though the wise owl had advised him to do so, and his body naturally wanted to relax. As the sun dipped below the horizon on a particularly chilly morning, Sammy sat perched on the branch of his tree and stared out into the quiet woodland below. A tornado of ideas swirled about in his head. He longed for the exhilaration of discovery, the rush of adventure, and the triumph against adversity. He seemed strangely at odds with this extended period of inaction, as if he were dissolving into nothingness. A soft voice broke him from his daydream as these ideas raced through his mind. Bella, a sociable bunny, had been Sammy's companion ever since they were little. His reflective demeanor had prompted her to see him and see how he was doing. She inquired, "What's wrong with you, Sammy?" with a worried expression on her face, concerned that he was wasting time and feeling uneasy due to his lengthy idleness. Sammy confided in Bella his uncertainties and anxieties. "Sammy, it's okay to feel this way," Bella said after listening carefully. "However, you should know that sleeping is not a frivolous activity. To live is to deal with it. We need to sleep just as much as we need to take in oxygen and food. Sometimes we recover and develop unconsciously during these periods of solitude." Her soothing comments helped Sammy calm his racing thoughts. After giving her point of view some thought, he realized that, in his own mind, rest was an obstacle to life, not an integral component of it. "Be right, Bella," Sammy eventually said, a little grin appearing on his lips. "Because I've been finding the things I'm not doing, I appreciate it for things I am. To be at rest is to engage in a new form of activity, isn't it?" Seeing Sammy's spirits rise, Bella nodded in agreement. "Indeed, Tom. Enjoy this period. Relax both physically and mentally. You will be prepared for all the fun that spring offers when it finally arrives." Thanking Bella for her insight made Sammy feel better emotionally. He understood that uncertainties were normal reactions to change, but that they should not shape his winter experience. Sammy had a profound sense of tranquility that night as he returned to his nest. Now that he knew they were more than a break from life, he could shut his eyes and welcome the dreams and relaxation as essential parts of his path. The forest's natural tempo remained decelerated throughout the winter. Under the heavy covering of snow, the normally lively forest floor lay calm, while the trees stood still and sad in mere white mantles. Now that Sammy was more at ease with the rhythm of sleep, he fell into a deep sleep that was completely new to him. As the sky transformed into a delicate tapestry of dusk one evening, Sammy found solace in his warm and snug nest, surrounded by a blanket of fur and leaves. A quiet stillness resounded across the woodland, matched by the coolness of the air. As Sammy lowered his eyelids to sleep, he experienced a calming influence that went beyond his typical nighttime relaxation. The first genuine sleep of his semi-hibernation, he realized as he drifted off to sleep. He fell into a deep slumber that appeared to transport him to a realm of great relaxation, renewal, completely detached from the material world. His body levitated, his head unburdened by the mundane chatter of concerns. Sammy had colorful and detailed dreams when he was asleep. His mind wandered to earlier springtime, when the air was full of life and color, with the sun's warm rays on his back, and the air filled with the aroma of freshly fallen leaves. He imagined himself hopping from branch to limb. In his fantasy world, he relived happy times spent with his woodland pals, whose laughing and conversation brought him delight. On the other hand, these dreams weren't only living the past. They were filled with optimism and eagerness for what the future held. There was a subtle thread of anticipation for spring in Sam's dreams, a time of rebirth and fresh beginnings. For Sammy, this first deep sleep was a watershed moment. He felt revitalized and revitalized like never before when he woke up the next morning. His mind and body seemed to have been restored to their most basic state, the kind of renewal that could only come through the deep winter sleep. This long sleep was a blessing. Sammy thought to himself. It gave him the time to recharge for the busy months ahead. He quietly accepted these slumbers, now laying the groundwork for the experiences and trials that the new year would bring. Sammy felt a profound oneness with nature and its ebb and flow as he gazed out into the peaceful, snow and mud-grown woodland. He realized that he too needed this winter to recharge his batteries before the spring's energetic growth, just as the forests did. As the snow blanketed the woodland and the stars twinkled in the dark winter sky, Sammy's sleep became deeper and more restful. Before retiring for the night to his cozy nest, he would often think about the dreams that would soon be his. Dreams like this, which appeared to contain profound insights and messages, were anything from typical. Sammy had a dream one night that haunted him even after he woke up. Within the dream, he was transported to a woodland that had been magically turned into a verdant paradise abounding with beautiful blooms and verdant foliage. Bird song filled the air, and the sun's gentle beams warmed all they touched. The feeling of exhilaration and rebirth washed over Sammy, a surge of vitality energizing his whole existence washed over him. In the dream, He felt an overwhelming sense of oneness with the vibrant life all about him as he soared effortlessly from branch to branch. In the dreamy forest, Sammy stumbled upon a clearing where a litter of baby squirrels were running about and playing. Their vitality and interest shone through their lively laughs and wide eyes. Sammy came to the realization that these young squirrels regarded him with admiration, considering him a wise leader and mentor. In his time with them, he imparted knowledge that had been invaluable to him, including where to get the finest nuts, how to balance on delicate branches, and the need of maintaining vigilance. The young squirrels were so impressed that they listened with rapt attention. Sammy was deeply affected by this dream. Upon waking up, he was filled with a profound sense of duty and direction. By spring, he would be ready to take on the responsibility of leading, instructing the next generation. The dream had informed him that his life story and wisdom were important for the forest dwellers as a whole, not just for his personal survival. With each passing day, Sammy felt a deeper and deeper connection to the natural world as he had more profound dreams. He realized that his dreams were symbolic of life's natural cycles, his role in them, rather than mere inventions of his mind. The dreams of spring symbolized the coming of a new season, when the peacefulness of winter would be replaced with the vivacity of spring. They encouraged Sammy and gave him strength to persevere through the winter because of their optimism and wisdom. The duration gradually increased as winter progressed, signaling the season's nearing conclusion. Sammy woke up from a deep sleep one morning to find the air different. The snow seemed to have a revitalized radiance, and the sun's beams had a little warmer sensation. Even though it was hardly perceptible to the naked eye, Sammy, who had trained himself to listen into the natural, made saw it as an indication that winter was to be defeated. Compared to his other awakenings, this one was unique. It was a spiritual awakening in addition to a bodily one. He had been changed by the profound dreams and the rest. A fresh feeling of direction and purpose washed over Sammy. Both he and his role in the forest had become clearer to him. The new view of the woodland greeted him as he emerged from his nest. The stillbed trees stood calmly and dignifiedly, waiting for the leaves to fall. The infinite white canvas of the snow-covered land reminded him of the fresh start that spring would bring. Sammy became more alert and methodical in his moves. As winter gave way to spring, he could see the forest's subtle changes. As the animal creatures started to come out of their winter hideouts, I could hear the birds singing a little louder, hence the slightest movement among them. Sammy had a deep connection to everything around him that day as he explored. The forest, he realized, was a society in which every living thing, every plant, and every element had an important function. He ceased to be an isolated squirrel and began to see himself as an integral cog in this wheel. For Sammy, this waking in the middle of winter marked a turning point. He came to the realization that the period of profound sleep was coming to an end, and the lively spring season was just around the corner. Armed with the physical preparations he had made and the mental and emotional development he had undergone throughout the winter, he felt ready for this shift. Chapter 3. A Season of Reflection. Sammy sat at the base of his tree that day, thinking back on his travels as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the snowy landscape in a warm, golden light, thanks to his dreams, which had hid him. In the natural cycle, he had grown, and for that he was grateful. With the arrival of spring came new difficulties and experiences, but Sammy was prepared for them. He had learned to go with the flow with nature's ebb and flow, its rhythm of activity and repose. To live a life of harmony and fulfillment, he came to understand that this balance was important. Sammy embraced the last days of winter with a spirit filled with memories and hope for what was to come, because they were the last stages on a ring to the renewal of spring. As the cold of winter gave way to the first signs of spring, Sammy's exploits took a turn at the exciting. As he ventured into an uncharted area of the forest, he unexpectedly encountered Bruno, a big and friendly bear who had just woken up from his long winter nap. Everyone in the forest looked up to Bruno because of his soft eyes and thick coat. His winter hibernation was well known, and Sammy was interested in learning about it. "Hello, Bruno," Sammy said, his eyes shimmering with anticipation. "I've been learning about rest and the cycles of nature. Could you tell me about your hibernation?" Bruno grinned warmly at Sammy, who was still a little drowsy from his lengthy slumber. "Of course, young squirrel. Hibernation is a profound time of rest for me. It's a period when I conserve my energy, allowing my body to survive the winter, when food is scarce." As Bruno detailed his hibernation, Sammy paid close attention. During this profound, almost meditative state, the bear's heart rate decreased and his bodily functions were severely curbed. His life depended on this time of inactivity. "But there's more to it than that," Bruno went on to say. "During hibernation, I often reflect on my life. It's a time of internal growth and understanding. When I wake up, I feel rejuvenated, not just physically, but also spiritually." This realization captivated Sammy. It dawned on him that hibernation was an essential part of many woodland species' life, whether it was profound, like Bruno's, or lighter like his own. "I've discovered something comparable," Sammy said. "This winter, I experienced a kind of semi-hibernation. It was a new experience for me, a time of deep rest and vivid dreams." Bruno showed comprehension by nodding. Each creature in the forest has its own way of coping with the winter, but the underlying principle is the same: a time of rest, reflection, and rejuvenation. Sammy learned a lot from his chat with Bruno. He realized that rest was more than a condition of passivity. It was a dynamic process of personal development and maturation. Like activity and effort, it was fundamental to existence. As they said their goodbyes, Sammy felt an overwhelming connection to Bruno, and more generally, to nature. He came to see that the forest's complex web of life was enhanced by the unique contributions of each living thing, with a deeper appreciation for the teachings nature had to give. Sammy resumed his explorations, After talking to Bruno, Sammy started paying closer attention to how his woodland friends slept, particularly during the long, cold winters. He saw how every living thing, in its own particular manner, made time to relax. As the snow started to melt, beneath a touch of green below, Sammy chose to spend a sunny morning watching the forest. While they basked in the sun and fluffed their feathers, he saw the birds serenely perched on branches. He saw the bunnies happily slouching in the sun-kissed meadows. The trees were also noted by Sammy. With their naked branches reaching towards the sky, they stood still and quiet. On the inside, however, he could feel them getting ready for spring's explosion of development. As the impending eruption of foliage and blossoms approached, they slept to recharge their energies. Also reached over Sammy with this realization. His understanding of rest expanded beyond the simple stopping of motion, a dynamic process. It was essential to the regenerative cycle of life. Animals slept to keep their health and energy levels up, just as trees do in the winter before waking up in the spring. Sammy thought back on his own wintertime experiences with relaxation. In his new perspective, he recognized his semi-hibernation and the intense dreams as a vital time for revitalization. He was energized and had fresh perspectives after his recuperation, which had set him up for the busy months ahead. Sitting in his tree, Sammy watched the sky becoming a kaleidoscope of orange and pink as the day drew to a close. Getting enough sleep has improved every aspect of his life, he realized. It had helped him comprehend who he was and where he belonged in the woods. Sammy came to understand was a precious gift, an integral component of living that merited appreciation and reverence. Things like food, water, and shelter were less essential than it. His harmony with the forest's rhythms was strengthened by this realization, which further cemented his bond with nature. A profound feeling of appreciation washed over Sammy as he made his nest for the night. He was grateful for the wisdom he had gained from the winter, the rejuvenating sleep he had enjoyed, and the prospect of a fresh day ahead. He had come to understand that rest was an integral aspect of his trip, not just a break. Days after Sammy learned the value of rest, he started to delve into a different facet of his winter, finding inner calm. Because of the forest's peacefulness and the slower pace of life, he was able to reflect inside, choosing a vantage point high in his tree from which to survey the jungle. Sammy began to devote portions of his days to contemplation. The serene swaying of the branches in interplay of light and shadow, and the ever-changing clouds were all things he watched. He found mental serenity and tranquility by this regular practice of quiet. On a particularly bright morning, while sitting in his usual place, Sammy felt his anxieties and mental chatter start to dwindle. Their absence was replaced with an overwhelming feeling of calm. From the tiniest bug scuttling down a branch to the largest cloud in the sky, he felt one with the universe. Because of this connection, he felt an overwhelming feeling of calm. This calm within was distinct from the ordinary slumber. It was a condition of being that actively sought out the present moment and welcomed the silence. Thanks to this routine, Sammy was able to see the world's natural splendor in a new light. Sammy included times of contemplation into his daily schedule as time went on. These of solitude were much anticipated by him, as they provided an opportunity to disconnect from the outside world and establish a connection with the soul. This realization of serenity also affected Samuel's behavior in relation to his environment. He became more empathetic, patient, and attuned to the feelings and needs of others around him. His bonds with his woodland companions strengthened, and he became an authority figure and a refuge for their anxieties. The impact of Sammy's quest for self-discovery on him was immense. He came to understand that tranquility was not an isolated experience, but rather an attitude he could maintain even when confronted with chaos. He was able to face life's difficulties with poise, ease, because the intercom that gave him strength and clarity. As the first hints of spring appeared, Sammy was thankful for everything he had learned throughout the long winter. He had learned the importance of tranquility from the forest stillness, and this realization had improved his life in many ways. He was prepared to welcome the changing seasons with an open mind and a calm spirit. Sammy grew to fully appreciate the long and slow process by which winter turned into spring in the forest. He watched the little changes happening around him as the days became longer and the snow became softer from the sun's warmth. I learned a lot about patience from this observation. Like the change of the seasons, Sammy learned that patience was necessary in many parts of life. Instead of hastily sprouting new leaves, the trees patiently awaited the perfect time. The flowers did not burst into bloom all at once, rather, they patiently awaited the ideal circumstances before blooming. This realization of life's inherent tempo struck a chord with Sammy. He thought back on the times when he had been anxious, eager to get on to the next exciting thing without stopping to enjoy the present. The beauty of waiting, of letting things evolve in their own time, became clear to him as he saw the slow emergence of spring. Sammy rethought his approach to everyday tasks after developing a newfound respect for patience. He stopped rushing through his work, started paying more attention to detail, and discovered that he enjoyed the journey more than the destination. His life was filled with more pleasure and contentment as a result of this slower pace. The minute symmetry of snowflakes, the complex patterns of tree bark, and the gradual shifts in sky color were all things he had previously failed to notice. Sammy's tolerance improvement extended to his relationships with his woodland companions. As well, his ability to listen, comprehend, and be fully present in discussions really improved. The people closest to him saw this shift and were grateful for the increased intimacy it brought to their friendship. Sammy learned to be more patient as the winter season faded and spring's early arrival became more apparent. The natural order of things had its own exact schedule, and he realized that certain things couldn't be hastened. The forest bestowed this lesson in patience as a token of its appreciation for the fact that the most meaningful and delightful things in life often arrive to those who are patient. This lesson was important to Sammy, and he carried it with him as he traveled through the seasons. There was a gradual change in the woodland as spring approached. The ice started to melt, exposing the ground underneath. The process of the snow melting brought Sammy a sense of awe and contemplation. As a symbol of the transient aspect of life, it marked the transition from one stage to another. As soon as it was light outside, Sammy would leave his nest and investigate the world around. As he observed, the previously night streams and the ice began to goggle and flow once again. In a few spots of verdant grass slowly poked their heads above the surface, while tree buds suggested the arrival of fresh foliage. With the melting snow came a feeling of optimism and regeneration. When Sammy thought about the fresh beginnings that spring would offer, he felt a flutter in his chest. But he also missed the winters of yesteryear, longing for the peace and wisdom they had bestowed upon him and the forest. As Sammy ventured farther into the wilderness, he came across many species that were getting ready for the next season. As like Bruno were gradually animating to their active lives after hibernation, while bunnies were roaming farther afield, and birds were busy making nests. Each animal Sammy saw patiently and adapted to the new circumstances. They were patient and let things happen as they would have otherwise. The significance of harmonizing with the natural rhythms and honoring the speed at which life changes was driven home to Sammy by this realization. Additional difficulties emerged as a result of the melting snow. Now that the snow had melted, the routes that had been clear had changed, and supplies like food and shelter had to be rethought. Sammy remained composed under pressure, shifting gears to investigate other avenues. During this time, I was able to study and develop. As Sammy adjusted to his new environment, he drew on the wisdom he had gained during the winter, such as the significance of slowing down, practicing patience, and finding inner peace. Sammy reflected gratefully on the winter as the last bits of snow melted and the first flowers blossomed. He was well prepared for the vivacious energy of spring after this season of reflection and development. As the snow melted, it served as a subtle reminder that change is continuous in life and a sign of transition. With the arrival of spring came new experiences, and Sammy eagerly welcomed this change. A plethora of fresh life had sprung up in the woodland since spring had arrived. The trees were so proud of their new leaves. The flowers were in full bloom, and the bird song was filling the air with excitement. This renewed vitality served as a powerful reminder of the natural cycle, which Sammy had come to accept and even celebrate. As the winter progressed, Sammy came to really appreciate the forest's natural rhythms. Every season has its own unique beauty and function, he had discovered. In addition to being a season of perseverance and adversity, winter was also a season of retreat, introspection, and personal development. Now that it was spring, he could put everything he had learned into practice and experience a fresh beginning. Sammy began to think about how the changing of the seasons mirrored the ebb and flow of his own life. There were periods of exploration and adventure, periods of relaxation and contemplation, and periods of development and transformation. To fully embrace this cycle, One must be open and grateful at every stage. Sammy had a feeling of oneness with his environment as he rushed through the forest, getting back to know its autonomy but known shunned pathways. He would face the difficulties and celebrate the triumphs of each season by drawing on his experience from the previous one. Even Sammy's relationships with his buddies began to exhibit signs of this newfound peace. He inspired people to accept and even celebrate life's natural cycles by sharing his story and the wisdom he gained from it. As a result of his friends and observations, a rich tapestry of knowledge was created. The relationships throughout the forest community were strengthened by the sharing of expertise. There was camaraderie and mutual aid, with everyone understanding that the forest's many living things were interdependent on one another and a wider cycle of life. Sammy had an overwhelming feeling of fulfillment as the days became warmer, and the woodland flourished in the abundant spring beauty. He had fully embraced the changing of the seasons, appreciating the significance of each stage. With this realization came serenity and a profound connection with his environment. Sammy had been changed by the forest's teachings. The significance of sabbaticals, the merit of patience, the finding of serenity inside, and the acceptance of the ebb and flow of life. Now he was an intelligent and considerate forester, prepared to take on whatever the future held, rather than a naughty squirrel. Sammy had anticipated the new seasons of experiences and personal progress. Filled with appreciation and a spirit strengthened by the voyage. He had faith in his capacity to adapt to life's unpredictable rhythms. Chapter 4: The Awakening. As soon as spring arrived, Sammy began to look forward to each new day with enthusiasm. He felt revitalized and eager to welcome the season with open arms as he saw the world around him teeming with fresh life. A fundamental and encouraging change occurred in Sammy. His outlook as a result of this fresh start. The time for contemplation and solitude that winter had offered was over. With its kaleidoscope of foliage, flurry of life, and allure of uncharted territory, the forest beckoned to him. Nevertheless, Sammy had been profoundly affected by the lessons learned throughout the winter. His perspective on life and his role in nature had evolved. He approached each day with these new insights. The feeling of purpose that had previously permeated Sammy's child. The forest started to represent more than simply a playground to him. It was a community of interdependent creatures, and he started to perceive himself as part of it. Because of this insight, his experiences in the forest among its creatures were richer and more rewarding. As a result, he became more attuned to many environmental changes, such as flowers budding, leaves gently unfolding, and spider web patterns. The marvels that he may have disregarded before now filled him with reverence and astonishment. A new position within the woodland community was also thrust upon Sammy. He took it upon himself to guide the younger squirrels and teach them from his experiences. He instructed them to rest before winter, to make the most of each season's offerings, and to be ready for winter at all times. this new viewpoint also came a stronger feeling of duty. Sammy realized that his activities influenced the forest and its people. He became more attentive of how he acquired food, how he interacted with people, and how he handled his surroundings. The awakening of spring, therefore, was not just a physical awakening of the forest, but also a personal awakening for Sammy. He had emerged from the winter not just rested and rejuvenated, but also wiser and more connected to the world around him. As he scampered through the trees, his heart full of joy and his mind open to the lessons of the day, Sammy felt grateful for this new perspective. He looked forward to the adventures that lay ahead, ready to experience them with a deeper appreciation and understanding. As the forest fully embraced the warmth and vitality of spring, Sammy reveled in the season's joy and its joy and exuberance. Each day brought new discoveries and delights. The forest was alive with the sounds of chirping birds, rustling leaves, and the gentle buzz of insects. The air was fragrant with the scent of blossoms and fresh earth, a perfume that invigorated Sammy's senses. Sammy found immense joy in the simple pleasures of spring. He loved watching the flowers bloom, each petal unfolding like a story waiting to be told. He marveled at the butterflies flitting from blossom to blossom, their delicate wings like a tapestry of colors. The streams, now free from ice, bubbled and flowed. Their music is soothing backdrop to his daily explorations. This season of renewal was not just about the physical rebirth of the forest, but also a celebration of life itself. Sammy felt a deep connection to this cycle of renewal. He understood that life was an endless dance of growth, change, and rejuvenation, and he was a part of this beautiful rhythm. His days were filled with activities, but unlike the frenzied pace of the past, he approached them with a sense of meaningfulness and appreciation. He took time to savor each moment, whether he was gathering food, playing with his friends, or simply basking in the sun. Sammy's joy was contagious. His enthusiasm and appreciation for the beauty of spring spread to the other creatures of the forest. He inspired them to take a moment to appreciate their surroundings, to find happiness in the small wonders of the natural world. The joy of spring was a reminder to Sammy of the beauty and resilience of life. It reinforced the lessons he had learned during the winter, the importance of rest, the value of patience, and the need for balance. Spring was a time to celebrate these lessons, to live them fully, and to share them with others. Sammy ended each day tired but fulfilled. He felt a deep sense of gratitude for the wonders of spring. He fell asleep to the symphony of the forest, a heart full of happiness, and a soul nourished by the joy of the season. Amidst the vibrant life of spring, Sammy found a new purpose in sharing the knowledge and wisdom he had gained. His experiences through the winter had taught him valuable lessons, and he felt a strong desire to pass these on to the other creatures of the forest. Sammy became something of a mentor, especially to the younger squirrels. He organized gatherings where he shared stories of his adventures, the challenges he faced, and the lessons he learned. He spoke about the importance of preparing for winter, the need for rest in affliction, and how to embrace the natural rhythms of life. These gatherings were not just about imparting practical skills for survival, but were also a time for Sammy to share his insights on living a balanced and harmonious life. He talked about the joy of discovery, the beauty of patience, and the strength that comes from inner peace. His audience listened with rapt attention, their eyes wide with wonder and curiosity. Sammy's stories were not just instructive, they were inspiring. He encouraged the younger squirrels to explore, to take risks, but also to be mindful and respectful of the forest and its inhabitants. Sammy's wisdom was not limited to his own kind. He shared his insights with the birds, the rabbits, and even the occasional curious fox. His message of harmony with nature resonated with many, and soon Sammy was known throughout the forest as a wise, kind-hearted squirrel. This role of a teacher and mentor was deeply fulfilling for Sammy. It gave him a sense of purpose and an attitude that he saw the spark of understanding in the eyes of his listeners, and he knew that he was helping to shape a more mindful and connected generation of forest dwellers. Through sharing his knowledge, Sammy found that he too continued to learn and grow. Each interaction, each quest by his audience, provided him with new perspectives and deeper insights. As spring blossomed into full vibrancy, Sammy's gatherings became a cherished part of life in the forest. They were a place of learning, inspiration, and community, a testament to the power of sharing knowledge and experience. As spring unfolded in its full glory, Sammy experienced a surge of energy unlike any he had felt before. This energy was not just the physical vigor of a well-rested body. It was a deeper, more profound vitality that stemmed from his winter of introspection and growth. He felt rejuvenated in both body and spirit, ready to embrace the challenges and opportunities of the new season. Each morning, Sammy awoke with a zest for life. He immediately engaged in his daily activities, which now included not just foraging and exploring, but also his newfound role as a mentor and teacher. He approached these tasks with a sense of purpose and enthusiasm, driven by the desire to make the most of each day. Sana's rejuvenated energy was evident in his interactions with others. He was more present and attentive in his conversations, more enthusiastic in his play, and more generous in his assistance to others. His positive attitude was infectious, and he brought a sense of joy and vitality to the forest community. This new energy also inspired Sammy to take on challenges that he would have shied away from in the past. He explored new parts of the forest. Sammy's adventures were no longer solo endeavors. They often turned into communal activities. He invited others to join him, turning his explorations into opportunities for shared learning and bonding. These group adventures fostered a sense of camaraderie and teamwork among the forest inhabitants, strengthening the community bonds. The source of this rejuvenated energy was not just the physical rest that winter had provided, but also the mental and emotional growth he had undergone. Sammy had learned the importance of balancing activity with rest, exploration with reflection, and individual needs with the needs of the community. As the days grew longer and warmer, Sammy's energy did not wane. Instead, it evolved, maturing into a steady, sustainable force that fueled his actions and decisions. He had learned to harness this energy, channeling it in ways that were beneficial, not just for himself, but for the entire forest. This rejuvenation was a gift from the cycle of the seasons, a reminder that each phase of life, whether restful or active, plays a crucial role in our overall being. Sammy embraced this gift, using his energy to live a life full of purpose, joy, and contribution. As spring gave way to the lush abundance of summer, Sammy maintained a keen awareness of the cycles of nature. He knew that even in the midst of this vibrant season, it was essential to start preparing for the winter ahead. This time, his approach to these preparations was infused with the wisdom and insights he had gained over the past year. Sammy began by revisiting and reinforcing his nest. He strengthened its structure and made sure it was well insulated, understanding the importance of a secure and cozy home during the cold months. His task was not just a chore, it was a labor of love, a way of caring for himself and ensuring his well-being. Next, Sammy focused on gathering food. He remembered the challenges of the previous winter and knew that having a well-stocked food supply was crucial. However, his approach to gathering was now more mindful and efficient. He chose his food source carefully, focusing on nuts and seeds that were nutritious and would last through the winter. Sammy also took time to explore new areas of the forest, searching for additional food sources. This exploration was not just about finding food. It was also an opportunity to learn more about his environment and to connect with other creatures who might have knowledge to share. Throughout these preparations, Sammy kept in mind the lessons of balance and moderation. He made sure not to deplete any single source of food, understanding the importance of preserving the ecosystem. He also balanced his time between preparing for winter and enjoying the present moment, savoring the beauty and bounty of summer. In addition to his physical preparations, Sammy also continued to nurture the relationships he had built within the forest community. He shared his knowledge and resources, helping others with their preparations. These acts of kindness and cooperation strengthened the bonds of the community, creating a network of support and mutual care. As summer waned and the first hints of autumn appeared, Sammy felt a sense of calm and readiness. He had prepared well for the winter, both physically and mentally. He knew that the coming months would bring their challenges, but he also knew, that he was equipped to face them. The preparations for the next winter were not just about survival. They were about living in harmony with the cycles of nature. Sammy had embraced these cycles, learning to flow with them, to learn from them, and to find joy in each phase. as he looked out over the forest, now tinged with the golden hues of early autumn. Sammy felt a deep sense of gratitude. He was grateful for the lessons of the past year, for the growth he had experienced, and for the opportunity to continue this journey through the seasons. Chapter 5. The cycle continues. Sammy was in a contemplative frame of mind. I started to change color to a red of lights and golds, a sure indicator that fall was on the way. This last year has been an adventure in self-discovery, development, and change. As he sat at his favorite tree and watched the sun set, Sammy thought about everything that had happened over the years. The winter had taught him the importance of solitude and repose. He reflected, with its heavy snowfall and dark evenings, the excitement of seeing the woodland come to life, and the first indications of spring were all vivid in his memory. During the summer, he was able to spend more time with his friends and family, as well as improve his abilities and forge stronger ties to the forest community. There had been something new to learn and experience with each passing season. The calm of winter had given him room to develop inside. The emergence of spring had given him optimism and a sense of regeneration. And the richness of summer had given him the transitions with either of those. Sammy saw parallels between his own life and his natural cycles. At various points in time, there was stillness and repose, reawakening and development, and activity and fellowship. He felt at peace and harmony after embracing these cycles. Gratitude was another emotion evoked by this contemplation. Sammy was grateful for the opportunities presented to him, the people he had met, and the knowledge he had acquired. He realized that life was a continuous journey with different stages, providing different experiences. I felt a profound connection to the earth. Around me as the sky darkened and the first stars revealed Sammy. His deep feeling of purpose, the satisfaction was fueled by the understanding that he was a part of this vast, magnificent circle of life. Sammy sought out the companionship of the older squirrel, Mr. Hawthorne, as the fall progressed, bringing with it shorter days and longer nights. Everyone in the forest looked up to Mr. Hawthorne, the oldest and most experienced squirrel, for his wisdom and expertise. They each had weathered his flaw and moved slowly yet deliberately. Sammy bowed down to Mr. Hawthorne, who probed his mind. Life and its cycles were puzzling to him, and he was sure that Mr. Hawthorne could shed light on the subject. Mr. Hawthorne, Sammy said, sometimes I think about how life is a cycle, and how the seasons change. Seasons come and go, as you have seen countless. How would you recommend that people learn to embrace these cycles? With sympathetic, perceptive eyes, Mr. Hawthorne observed Sammy. You have already learned a lot, Sammy, he said gently. Recognizing that all things are subject to change at all times is the source of all knowledge. Life grows stages just like the seasons, winter, spring, summer, and fall. He went on to say, appreciate the beauty and uniqueness of every season. Spring is a season of growth and rebirth. Summer is a time of activity and connection building. And fall is a time of harvesting and thankfulness, which teaches us to rest and reflect. You may learn something new from every season, and they're all vital. Sammy took in every word as he listened carefully. The key, Mr. Hawthorne said, is to be present in each moment, to embrace the here and now. This insight was a distillation of life's realities based on Mr. Hawthorne's years of living and watching. Every day and every season is a part of the priceless gift that is life. Treasure it. Take wisdom from it. And never forget to return the favor, just as the forest does for us. Over Sammy, a deep comprehension washed over him. The remarks of Mr. Hawthorne were quite meaningful. They gave me insight and solace. He came to understand that a seasonal voyage was about more than simply self-improvement. It was also about making a difference in the forest's life cycle. As Sammy said farewell to Mr. Hawthorne and departed, he felt a stronger connection to the environment. The thread in the exquisite, ever-evolving fabric of existence, he realized he was a part of something bigger. As the woodland got ready for winter in the middle of September, Sammy focused on the younger squirrels. The advice he had gotten from Mr. Hawthorne and others stuck with him, and felt obligated to share what he had learned. Similar to the meetings he had attended as a young squirrel, Sammy planned similar events for the younger squirrels. He recounted his travels and the wisdom he had gained from each season in his stories. Aside from teaching readers how to survive in the wild, his tales also taught them to respect the natural world and its rhythms. He instructed them on how to be ready for winter by revealing the greatest areas to gather food and how to preserve it, emphasizing the need of a secure and cozy house during the winter months. He showcased the skill of constructing a strong and cozy nest. But Sammy's lessons were about more than just staying alive. He emphasized the significance of community, a delight of discovery, and the need of rest and thought. He urged the young squirrels to go out and see the world, or warned them to be careful, not to harm the forest or its wildlife in the process. The classes taught by Sammy were lively and interesting. He planned educational and entertaining events like scavenger hunts and tree climbing competitions. The forest was both a home and a place of adventure, and he hoped the baby squirrels would grow up to value it as both. All eyes were on Sammy as the young squirrels admired and respected him. They looked up to him as an example of a man who had weathered life's storms and come out stronger and wiser. They carried the forest and its rhythms into their daily lives with the values instilled in them by Sammy. Sammy felt content as the air became cooler, the leaves dropped. The forest community benefited from his passing on knowledge to subsequent generations. The most essential thing, he thought, was that these baby squirrels would develop an appreciation and knowledge of nature, Sammy pondered the ebb and flow of life and death as the days became shorter and the cool of winter descended upon the woodland again. He came to see that this cycle was an essential part of being, not just a natural pattern. Over the course of the year, he had thoroughly embraced the rhythm. At last, Sammy doubted. In the same way that trees rest and lose their leaves throughout the winter to get ready for their rapid growth in spring, he had also learned the value of letting things go, of pausing to think and contemplate. All over the forest, this rhythm of life and death was plain to see. Everything from the earth to the animals to the plants lived in perfect harmony with this beat. Every stage of the natural process worked in perfect harmony with one another, enhancing the ecosystem as a whole. Important lessons had been imparted to Sammy by his own encounters with this cycle. Last, he had realized, was not a period of sloth or unfulfillment, but of vital maturation and rebirth. Prior to the active periods, there was a period for processing events, building strength, and being ready for the obstacles and possibilities that were ahead. Sammy was calm and prepared as winter drew near. He was psychologically and physically ready for the quiet period that lay ahead. He anticipated the winter's calm, the long nights of sleep and vivid dreams, and the personal development and new understandings that would accompany these times. A part of this cycle was Sammy's involvement in the forest. He also recognized the forest community benefited from his efforts during the active times, his connections with others, and his information sharing. In return, he felt a feeling of belonging and connection from the group, which sustained him throughout the peaceful times. All of the forest's residents benefited from the knowledge that the natural rhythm of life's ups and downs offered. Recognizing its importance for a well-rounded existence, Sammy gratefully accepted this cycle. With gratitude in his heart, Sammy gazed out at the woodland as the first snowflakes of the season fell. He was prepared to welcome winter's calming embrace, absorb its teachings, and usher in the next phase of life. A peaceful covering of snow fell over the woodland as winter descended, and Sammy frequently found himself lost in contemplation, wondering what kind of mark he would make. As a symbol of calm and knowledge in the forest, Sammy was lovingly called the then-legged squirrel, because he welcomed winter's nap. Through the ups and downs of each season, he had grown and changed, yet he effect on everyone around him, inspiring people to accept life's natural rhythms and discover harmony in the cycle of action and rest. He shared his experiences and insights. This lesson is sharing preparation, relaxation, and harmonious relationship with nature were some of the lessons he had taught others. Sammy came to the realization that his legacy included more than just the end of an era, and he rested in his worn nest to watch the snow slowly fall. He had been a role model for the younger generation, teaching them important life lessons and imparting wisdom that would ensure their success and the forest's continued health. For each, the values passed down included appreciating the natural world, maintaining a healthy work-life balance, and feeling connected to a purpose bigger than oneself. Knowing that his stay in the woods was only an epoch, Sammy was able to appreciate its significance. Life in the forest, like the changing of the seasons, was characterized by an endless cycle of transition. His legacy would endure in the forest and among people he had touched, thanks to his insight, contributions, and enthusiasm. Sammy had an overwhelming feeling of contentment as winter progressed and the evenings lengthened. An exciting, purposeful life had been lived by him. He had discovered happiness and serenity by submitting to the natural rhythms. The sleepy squirrel would live on as an example of the value of living in harmony with nature's cycles and rhythms, with his heart overflowing with thankfulness for the adventure he had completed. Sammy nestled up in his nest as the snow continued to fall, covering the landscape in a gentle beauty.